Welcome to the SRC Community Safety and Security Live Forum, hosted in partnership with JCF Area 3, comprising Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth, under the theme Disaster Ready. And we have brought together representatives from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, National Environment and Planning Agency. Most of us know the entity as NEPA, the Jamaica Public Service, and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, who will be helping us as community members to better prepare for, empower us to respond to, and recover from hurricanes, floods, and landslides. And already the team across the island are in full gear because it's gearing up to be a very active hurricane season, and we don't want to be caught flat-footed. And so we're utilizing all the medium necessary to ensure that we are prepared across the island. And thanks to the team at JCF Area 3 who saw it fit to have these representatives in the space on the monthly Community Safety and Security Live Forum here. If you're new to the space, I'm your host, Winsome Sharia Witter. Always a pleasure to facilitate these very important discussions. So let me pause to extend a special thanks to our committed forum sponsor, National Self-Serve Wholesale at 4 Brooks Avenue in Maypen, Clarendon, where you get more and spend less. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, whether you are here with us live or you are watching the replay. But if you're here live, go ahead and share the link so others can get access to the information that's about to be shared in the space. And we keep it engaging and interactive, so use the comment section so you can participate in the discussion here. Apologies for those who would like to connect with us over there on Instagram. We're having some technical challenges there, but we are live on Sovereignty Resource Connector, YouTube, and Facebook platforms. So it's time to get right into the flow of the discussion. So we're going to get started with the representative from NEPA. Welcome to the space. We have with us Gregory Bennett, Director of Spatial Planning Division at the National Environment and Planning Agency. So Bennett, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, colleagues, and good evening to your listeners and viewers. Thank you very much.
And for this first segment, we are going to have joining us as well, Shamar Harrison from the Incident Communication and Information Officer, Jamaica Public Service, JPS. Welcome, Sir Harrison.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. Hello to your team, the fellow panelists, and your viewers as well.
Awesome. All right. And Sir Richard Thompson should be joining us shortly, the Director General acting at Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. But until he gets here, we are going to get the discussion flowing, looking at preparedness, because we are in preparation mode, right, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So as we enter the hurricane season, what's one message you want every Jamaican, especially those in vulnerable communities, to hear right now? Starting with NEPA, and then we move to JPS.
Simply, the message is be informed, be prepared, and stay alert and prepared to act.
All right. Sir Harrison?
It's really two things in one. The first being that JPS is prepared and is constantly in preparation mode. And the second thing is that it's a collaborative effort. We do our part, but customers also have a part to play in ensuring that we're as ready as possible.
Indeed. And Mishka is saying, be prepared. So she's agreeing with you both that being prepared, fantastic. So there you have it. Customer is saying that. Key message, be prepared. All right, so let's start by looking at some less obvious environmental risk communities should watch for. Sir Bennett.
Yes, good evening again. So in my brief presentation, I'd like to outline some key environmental risk factors that communities should be aware of. Some are apparent and some are, we hope this evening to inform and to sensitize you more about some of these things. So the first and the big area, um, I'd like to say is that the NEPA's, our mandate and our role is the protection of the natural and the built environment. So that is our mandate. Our goal is to ensure that the country is resilient, safe, secure, and that sustainable development is at the heart of everything that we do. So vulnerability from an environment point of view is in our context has a lot to do with geography and physical location. In fact, the based on our historical development and distribution of our settlements, what we call our settlement patterns, historically most of our communities and cities and towns are located along the coastline. And so hence the term I'm going to raise at this point in time is zoning and land use management. So one of the big issues is that a lot of the communities are located along, coastline, low-lying areas, rivers, riverbeds, and gully banks. These areas are highly vulnerable to the impacts of an hurricane, which can manifest itself through storm surges, overtopping its banks, flooding, extensive flooding, and of course, other associated activities associated with those activities. So, in addition, quite extensive across the country. You'll find that persons also are located along gully banks, canals, grass waterways, and as well as wetland ecosystems. These systems are highly vulnerable because, well, it causes the community to be highly vulnerable because, um, with the impact of an hurricane, I can imagine that you will have inundation, increase surface and groundwater, flow, and this can have a significant impact on homes and infrastructure and so on. There's also the issue of poor siting of homes and buildings. There are established zoning codes in terms of land use management, which I'm going to introduce here, is that we have what is called development orders and plans, which sets out land use and zoning, in a spatial way. That is, where do we build the appropriate locations that for persons to build their homes and buildings and so on. These documents are guided by studies, that would have taken into consideration vulnerability of the specific location. So communities will be vulnerable because if you are built on steep slopes, slopes that have are unstable, slopes that are not unreinforced, slopes that are prone to landslides and hillsides, slippages and so on. Though by virtue of that situation, you will be vulnerable in an extreme or even sometimes an event that with prolonged rainfall, as we can see in most of our a lot of our communities. Another thing that I like to raise as well is that some cases that we have found that persons that are living in areas where there are no protective features, like mangrove areas, um, you know, other environmental features that would assist with some sort of protection. Although we know that in with an hurricane at Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5, irrespective of the situation, can have serious impacts, irrespective. So the other environmental risk factors are poor building practices. That is, I spoke about the siting of the buildings, but I'm going to talk about construction now. And I've seen and based on reports that a lot of the buildings are built by unprofessionals without the necessary guidance according to the relevant building codes and standards. And what does that mean is that you can see that, you know, in terms of entire roofs and buildings and everything being blown away, in the case where there's a significant wind damage, or wind impact based on hurricanes, you know, poor drainage systems as well. You find that construction happens where little no drainage infrastructure was actually implemented. So when there's increased rainfall as a result of the hurricane impact, the runoff, you know, is an issue, and so therefore that contributes to flooding. Um, there's also proximity to vulnerable infrastructure as well. You know, in some cases there are the roads or bridges or power lines that we are aware of as a community that needs to be fixed, and just by a physical location and in proximity to these um facilities, you will become vulnerable as a result. Another area that I like to raise as well is environmental degradation. Now, we we consider sometimes there are practices that we do based on our normal livelihoods and so on, but over time what they do is that it compromises um the air and the environment in terms of being able to withstand to protect communities against these events. So the practices of deforestation, that is the clearance, widespread clearance of trees and vegetation and so on for farming practices, you know, in an uncontrolled, you know, manner, or practices that leads to um other protective natural features from being lost, you know, that assists. So, you know, loss of our, you know, a loss of our coral or seagrass, it's to a lesser manner, but these also help to contribute to reducing the impact of coastal inundation and so on. So, you know, poor land use practices as well. One of the big things that we have identified, which I want to raise here, is that, and citizens need to be aware that there's also a personal responsibility, because the blocking up of drains with our garbage situation, poorly disposed of solid, you know, waste, is also very significant. At NEPA, we have been through the various through our stakeholders, we have implemented 4 phases of the plastic ban. In fact, I should say that this week, well, last week, was National Environmental Awareness Week,
Oh,
and one of the main thrusts in that week is to reinforce to the community and citizens that plastic, you know, is biodegradable. You know, although there are many different types, but the ones that are biodegradable, they contribute to the blocking up of drains or waterways and our gullies and rivers and streams. And eventually, what happens is that obviously, the drainage is compromised, and it contributes significantly to flooding. You know, and of course, tied to that is poor maintenance, drain cleaning. I know that there's a program of drain cleaning that the municipal corporation and, you know, the national works agents and other entities and some communities do organize themselves and undertake this. So a regular you know source of cleaning our drains is also important. There's
all right,
also the issue.
Mr. Bennett, we're going to have you on for a forum by by yourself to get deeper
Yes,
into these others. All right, so we have a couple more segments to go. So
yes,
hold your thoughts
yes.
and let's bring in uh, Sir Thompson. Let's welcome Sir Thompson to the forum as we bring him in on the discussion on preparedness. You turn on your camera, Sir Thompson, so we can get you in. This is Richard Thompson, Director
All
General
right.
at Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Welcome.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good
All right.
evening.
Sorry
Yeah.
for the delay.
All right.
I live in the bushes.
All right, could you turn the device sideways? Rotate the device and turn it sideways so
Repeat
you
that.
have the video mode.
I can't hear you. Repeat that.
All right, I hear the dog joining the conversation. Are you hearing?
Yeah, they have a way of embarrassing persons, huh? They were quiet while Gregory was talking.
All right. Are you able to turn the device sideways?
So, let me try to see if it will pick up.
So if you rotate. All right, let's go to Mishka, saying poor garbage disposal, poor draining, properly throwing away your garbage properly throwing your garbage in the street and water from running. Indeed, Mishka. Thank you for keeping the comments going. All right, it seems to be having a challenge with it. It's all right. We're gonna have to work with the other mode. All right, until we get that sorted out, let's bring in Sir Harrison. How does JPS prepare the grid and teams for storms each year?
Hey, stop
it. Is there anything new this year that your JPS is doing in terms of preparation?
So preparation is a year-round activity for JPS, and each year it is informed by what would have happened the previous hurricane season. And Hurricane Beryl happened last year, Tropical Storm Raphael, and those two experiences informed the general practices that we do have anyway. So I'll talk about our general preparation for the entire island, and then I'll speak to some specific aspects relating to Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth. The first main thing that we focus on in terms of preparation is structural integrity work. So that's basically strengthening the power delivery network, so replacing poles, lines, and upgrading equipment, just to help to reduce the risk of damage to the grid and to make it easier to restore supply to our customers if it is their outages or if a shutdown becomes necessary. And in addition to that, a part of that structural integrity work involves vegetation management. So the removal of danger trees that could cause power outage is an important part of JPS's hurricane preparations. Our teams continue to work with contractors across all parishes to remove trees at certain power lines. And before I spoke to the fact that this is a collaborative effort, the preparation between both the company, other agencies, and also customers. And we continue to urge our customers to keep trees on their properties from growing close to power lines. So the first thing would be the structural integrity work. The second thing is the boosting of inventory and resources. So from the beginning of the year, we would have done an assessment based on whatever would have been used the last season, the previous year, and to assess or project what we think would be necessary both for the year in terms of regular operations and if we do get hit by a system or multiple systems, so stocking up on poles, lines, etc. The third thing would be that we have established formal agreements and arrangements with both local and overseas partners so we can have or call on additional resources if the need arises. So this is in terms of mutual aid agreements with utilities or other entities in both North America and within the region, and also our ongoing partnership as members, well, a member of the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, which is CARELEC, who during Hurricane Beryl was very instrumental in providing support to us. So that is both in terms of providing line workers and equipment. So that's the infrastructure upgrade, the boosting of inventory and resources, the formal arrangements, and then the auditing and state of readiness assessments. So we do have to constantly be checking and upgrading our own buildings to ensure that they're in working order, to ensure that when it comes on to supplies that employees and teams would need in the event a system does hit and we have to move into restoration mode, it does call on more resources, and we need to ensure that our locations are adequate in terms of the infrastructure, the strength, and in terms of supplies that would be necessary. And a part of the restoration process is the fifth thing, which has to do with continuous empowerment and training for employees and contractors. And that manifests in two ways: regular training courses, refresher programs, but also when it comes on to hurricane drills and simulations. Hurricane drills and simulations are a part of how we operate regularly. And every year leading up to the season, we do have this. But for this year, there was an increased focus on ensuring that it was more collaborative and that we had an interagency or inter-utility approach. So our drills, 2 of the 3 that we had, focus on incorporating entities such as the NWA, NWC, representatives from ODPEM, the municipal corporations, a number of other entities that we do have to collaborate with when there is a tropical storm or hurricane and we do need to restore, because we have to work together to have access clear and sorted out so we can get to our infrastructure. We have to work with other entities in terms of restoring supply to their critical facilities if they lose them. So this interagency approach allowed us to strengthen the communication pathways and to put new ways of working in place to ensure that if it is we do get hit by a system or systems, we've been in a place not just to act as JPS, but to act collaboratively to provide our customers with updates and to have a faster and more efficient restoration process. And a part of this in terms of the empowerment of employees and the training is also the assignment of storm roles. So each employee is assigned a storm role, or is to have a storm role at JPS. And this means that separate and apart from the substantive role you have as an employee on a day-to-day basis, in the event of a hurricane or tropical storm, there is a role that you play specific to the restoration process. And this means that all employees will be focused on not just regular operations, but ensuring that we get our customers back up and running and that the nation can operate as optimally as possible in as fast a time as possible. And the final thing I'll talk about is the communication. So an important part of preparation is ensuring that our customers and the nation are on board, that they are aware of what's happening in terms of the efforts we're making to strengthen the grid, to be prepared, but also that the messaging is focused on what customers can do to also prepare. So we do communicate safety tips, especially those that are electricity related. So that's very important. Stocking up on supplies, tips that our fellow agencies would also communicate on. And also the importance of clearing trees, as I mentioned before, that are on your property and preventing them from growing into the lines and so on. So our channels that we communicate on, we have expanded. So since Hurricane Beryl, in addition to the My JPS mobile app or website and media releases and our presence on traditional media such as the radio and TV generally, we do have a WhatsApp broadcast channel as well. And we will continue to have these channels in place as we move further into the hurricane season and as a part of our response as well to keep our customers updated.
Fantastic. And before we take Sir Thompson, what practical tips can you share for households to protect electrical equipment and stay safe? Quick tip. How do they protect their
Sure. So there are a few things you can do, but before we get to the protection, one advice I give as well. The moment a system threatens, we advise our customers to, your refrigerator, for example, if you do have perishables or items in the refrigerator, turn it to the maximum setting, just so it can get as cool as possible. Things can be frozen if necessary. So in the event you lose supply, you're able to keep things fresher for longer. But in terms of practical tips, check and secure your electrical installations. So we do recommend that if you're able to, you have a licensed electrician check your premises at least once per year to just ensure that the wiring is fine, especially if it is you've acquired new appliances or you've done some rewiring or remodeling. We ask that as a basic step that you check the wiring just to ensure things are in place so that you reduce the chances of there being any issues such as fire, or that you don't have electrical issues separate from any that may be impacting the grid. So that's one thing. Mentioned cutting the trees before. Clearing debris from your yard. It may not be electrical in nature directly, but when it is you have a relatively clear space, then you can see any danger or hazards that might be in place after a system passes, such as loose wires, etc. So those are a few things. I did want to spend just a minute to point out a few of the infrastructural work and some of the works we have done in the parishes. So for example, in Clarendon, we did change over 100 poles from Pedro River to Harmony Vale. We did do the same thing in terms of changing over 100 poles from Kellits to Luidas Vale, and replaced poles and upgraded vital devices, including 20 kilometers of lines from Maypen to Frankfield. In Manchester, changed poles from Penhill to Southern Trelawney. We did extensive vegetation management work from Coleyville to Troy and Spalding to Alston Bridge, and also from Porus to the Clarendon border. And then in St. Elizabeth, vegetation work as well, trimming trees along over 100 kilometers of lines, and had focused inspections of sections of the network that supply power to critical facilities, so NWC, hospitals, police stations, and so on. And it's a pretty extensive list in terms of work we've done in the parishes, but just to mention a few practical ways that we've actually applied some of those preparation steps that I mentioned before.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And by the way, I had the pleasure of being a part of the drill, interagency drill.
Yes.
Well done. And,
Thank you.
Right. I love the experience to see what happens behind the scene. I know you all are busy in your control room and making
Yes,
sure.
and thank you so much for having been a part of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Sir Thompson, welcome. All right. So already the action has started at ODPEM.
And I hope the dogs won't start barking again.
All right. So action has started at ODPEM, but let's let the viewers understand how ODPEM coordinate nationally and then parish level efforts before a major weather event.
All right. Well, the action has always been there. It's right throughout the year. Our activities is all hazards. It's not just hurricanes. Despite what the general public might think, that ODPEM only work during the hurricane season, and we be there at the ODPEM kicking stones in the car park outside of the hurricane season. It is all hazards, as persons will know. Persons know that we suffer from hydrometeorological hazards, such as hurricane storms, adverse weather impacts. We suffer from your geophysical events, landslides, earthquakes, those things, and also your hydrological type events. No rainfall, you'll get drought, you'll get riverine flooding and all those kind of things during heavy rain period. So ODPEM is a national disaster coordinator. Our mandate is to ensure that we are putting in measures, the necessary measures to deal with preparedness for response to and recovery from disasters, ensuring that all the necessary countermeasures are in place to protect our citizenry and by virtue the national assets and the national economy. So we do extensive preparation right throughout the year. A lot of it is looking at plan development, looking at simulation exercise, looking at all aspects of exercise, whether it's full scale, tabletop, and drills. We were part of the main part of the JPS operations, the drills that they do, the simulation drills before the hurricane season. We did extensive drill preparation as well with the Jamaica Defense Force, other stakeholders in terms of event horizon and looking at all aspects of hazard management and response. So for especially for hurricanes, we have extensively leading into the hurricane season. We do shelter preparation. So we do analysis of all buildings that we will be using as shelters going into the season. A large percentage of our shelters are in fact schools. So we do those assessments as it relates to our shelter preparation. Shelter preparation is extensive. Includes the ODPEM, it includes the local authorities. The local authorities tend to spearhead that process because they have a better understanding of the local space and what they would need as shelters. Part of that process as well is the Ministry of Health, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the engineering department, which is the roads and works department of the local authorities. Ministry of Health critically because what we have done in terms of our shelter management process is ensure that we still have the COVID protocols as part of it. So we look extensively at outside of water and sanitation that the Ministry of Health plays a critical role in. We also look at isolations, how we would prepare to ensure that our shelters have the necessary isolation room, because as we realize and that COVID is now a part of us, and it is a mainstay now, just like the common flu. And so we do that kind of preparations. Shelter managers are extensively trained. They are trained throughout the year, extensively going into the hurricane season. We have in excess of 1,000 shelter managers, and coupled with that, because the fact that shelter managers are part of volunteers, we have a national volunteer program as well, where we have in excess of 2,000 persons being in that database. And for the shelters, we have in excess of about 892 shelters on this year's shelter listing. So in terms of that preparation, that is there. We do extensive preparation as well with a national emergency response team. The ODPEM leads is a national coordinator, and we lead what is called the National Emergency Operations Center. And so that's the fulcrum or the hub where the operations take place whenever time the country is impacted by any emergency or disasters. And so we ensure that there is a constant process where the national players are engaged. And as I said before, part of the engagement is through simulations and regular meetings. So there is a National Emergency Operations Center that everyone is a part of. And we ensure that during a response, there is full communication between the local authorities who have to stand up what is called their Parish Emergency Operations Center, and then the ODPEM, that as it relates to the National Emergency Operations Center. So all of that takes place at the preparation level. The Meteorological Service of Jamaica is critical to that process as well. So we have what is called a national response matrix, and it sets out based on the type of hazard that is impacting us with the potential to turn into disasters. It sets out who are the lead, who are the support elements. For your hydrometeorological events, the Met Service is the lead. So normally when we are prepping for events, the Met Service will give their predictive forecast, and then we plan around that, plan all this, the scenarios, looking at the vulnerable communities, and how we know will, based on the trajectory of the system, how we would respond to those vulnerable communities. So the process is extensive, and it involves not only the local authorities, but also ministries, departments, and agencies that are a part of the process. Jamaica Fire Brigade, the Jamaica Defense Force, Constabulary, Ministry of Health, Labor and Social Security, NGOs such as, and auxiliary groups such as the Jamaica Red Cross, ADRA, Food for the Poor, you name it. We have a part of the national process, the National Council, the National Disaster Risk Management Council. That council is chaired by the Prime Minister. And we have 7 committees of council, and each committees of council have their respective terms of reference and the role and responsibility that they have. The Humanitarian Committee of Council is a very large committee that have most of the players that I just called, the ADRA, the Food for the Poor, St. John's, Jamaica Red Cross, MLSS lead that group as the chair. And so a lot of the preparation work as to how we look at damage assessment and response analysis and risk profiling comes out of those committees of council, such as all the mitigation and planning committee, which is co-chaired by the National Environment and Planning Agency. So all those elements lead into how we prepare the country for any response leading into any hurricane season, and also even outside of the hurricane season, if we are impacted by any kind of adverse weather impact that would bring flooding or any kind of impact to these vulnerable and low-lying communities. So the work that we do at the ODPEM is extensive. Our mandate really is to ensure that we are protecting our population and we are building resilience, because for a small island developing state, one event can totally erode our economic gains. So we have to ensure that we are building resilience across the country, and that we are ultimately protecting our people.
Indeed. And we know that you have a number of these systems in place leading up to, once there's an announcement, ODPEM is actively involved. So share with us the most effective early warning systems that you have in place and how communities can stay informed.
All right. So what we have done, and this has been for some time, in terms of what we are doing as it relates to early warning system. We, in 2013, when I was looking at, just sitting down and looking at the 9/11 situation, just give me a minute. My laptop is on low battery, so I'm just going to plug it in. I was sitting down and looking at the 9/11 situation, what I decided then, just give me a quick minute, let me just plug in this laptop.
All right, while we wait for Sir Thompson to come back, Michelle
Yes.
shared earlier, move away from places that are easily flooding. All right, so go right ahead, Sir Thompson, because
Yes, so what I decided then was that it would have been good in terms of having a national system where all our first responders were able to speak on one common platform. So we, out of just a casual discussion at a cocktail hosted by the then Japanese ambassador, he said to me, "What, Thompson? What is something that you would do as it relates to disaster management?" And I said to him, "Well, sir, I would love to be able to have all my responders speaking on one common platform." And so out of that, a project was born, which was called Improving Disaster Communication in Jamaica. So right now we have an extensive national communication platform for all our emergency responders, and that is also plugged into a lot of the community apparatus, because we operate in Jamaica from a disaster standpoint at 3 levels: national, local, and the community, and we ensure that the community players, which operates the community disaster risk management teams, and the community search and rescue teams can communicate. So that platform is there in terms of early warning. We also have put in, and some of them have been there for some time, flood early warning systems, like in the gorge, alley in Clarendon, which is one of those areas that tend to flood significantly when there is rainfall activities, and other areas across the country. We have put in flood early warning system, and part of that communication system as well is to ensure that we have as well siren type communication. We have a tsunami communication in Olava, which is a tsunami warning siren in Olava Bay. That community is classified internationally by the IMO as tsunami ready. International Maritime Organization as tsunami ready. We have done extensive drilling in that community, and that is one of the model communities in Jamaica in terms of being tsunami ready. So we have that as part of the JCF improving early warning communications in Jamaica. We have 15 sirens in 2 parishes, St. Mary and St. Catherine, and that also form part of the national early warning system. And we also have real-time camera focus on the gorge, which gives us a kind of perennial challenge as it relates to flooding. Whenever time there is extensive rainfall, the gorge tend to flood, and we know that's one of the main thoroughfare between Kingston and the western side of Jamaica, going into the Ocheras, going into the northern side, and going into the further west if you're going into Montego Bay, parts of Westmoreland. So we have real-time communication on that as well, and an eye on that system. We also have that kind of real-time communication as well at alley, where we can see what is happening at the bridge. So what we are doing is building out over time a comprehensive national early warning communication platform, and to ensure that our citizenry can get early and accurate information during times of disasters.
All right. So this segment was on preparedness. And if you notice, it's not by chance that preparedness take up a full almost 3/4 of the hour, but it's very important. And we didn't even get to go through everything from NEPA, but it's very important that we stay prepared as we head into what's going to be a very long season this year by what we're seeing in terms of the results. All right, so we're going to bring in Jacqueline Shepherd into the conversation now from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Thank you, Lady Shepherd, for waiting patiently.
That's okay.
All right, so we're going into risk management and relief. So tell us, how does the ministry support vulnerable populations during disasters?
Good night. I'm happy to be here. I know you asked me that question, but as I listen to the preparedness, I just quickly want to say something before I just respond. We live in a Christian country that think that we pray and God will deliver us and everything will work out fine. But we also have to be cognizant that God won't do for us what we can do for ourselves. So this forum could not have come at a better time to encourage people to say that, always be informed, always be ready to move. Prevention, if you fail to prepare, then you can prepare to fail. And I just want to quickly add that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is the lead government agency with responsibility for humanitarian assistance and disaster response. As Mr. Thompson indicated, we chair one of 7 committees of the National Disaster Risk Management Council, which is chaired by the Dr. Honorable Andrew Holness. We also lead the household damage assessment post-disaster. We coordinate all welfare activities in collaboration with the ODPEM. We pay an emergency grant. We support shelter management by allowing food to be placed in shelters to assist those persons who come into the shelters. We also operate a warehouse and we receive and store donations for our response. So at the national level, we operate as a Humanitarian Assistance Committee. As Mr. Thompson indicated, when there's a national disaster, it's not the MLS, it's the Humanitarian Assistance Committee that springs into action, which consists of the major stakeholders, humanitarian stakeholders, to include Red Cross, ADRA, Salvation Army, and we execute our activities through a multi-sectoral approach. Ministries, department, agencies, non-government agencies, also faith-based organizations. So in our thrust and in our mantra to serve and to reach those persons that we want to reach, our first response is always in kind. What do I mean by in kind? So our first response is food, bedding, and toiletries. And I love to say, yes, the National Work Agency comes out and clear the road. Yes, JPS is doing this. Yes, but if I'm in my house and my children are wet and cold and hungry and have no food, it's a different scenario than telling me about the road is going to be clear. So our first response is in-kind support. So we provide support within all shelters that are open. Once persons are in the shelter, we provide food to these shelters, and we literally provide food to all and sundry that is in need of food, bedding, toiletries. And the second phase of our response now is when we begin the activity on the ground to do the household damage assessment, where we move from house to house to actually do an assessment of what type of damage they sustain. And based on the damage they sustain, they can also receive some cash benefits. But much as our response, we are more in a response mode. I would happy to say that we do some mitigation things before, and we'll do some levels of preparedness, but our main thrust is from a response perspective. So mitigation, we have some programs within the ministry. We do a case management approach. So we have some programs within the ministry under rehabilitation program. It's not a lot of money, but at least it can act as a bolster. It can provide some assistance before. So it can offer some income generating activities, or it can offer what we call a compassionate grant, where you can get a small grant to do minor repairs to your house. So before the hurricane season, you can actually, if your roof is not good or you need to prepare a better door for your house or so on, that sort of assistance. In our preparedness, we actually manage the warehouse where we procure supplies, release supplies, not necessarily food, bedding, toiletries, tarpaulin, plus we receive donation, and these are aided in our response as we go there. Our social workers, we have a cadre of social workers across our 13 parish offices who are our hands and our feet. They're on the ground with the parish managers who are coordinating all the activities of reaching to the people who are most in need, doing the household damage assessment, ensuring that none is left behind, supplies are given to persons, and as much as possible, we provide information to persons. Most of our social workers are trained in psychosocial support and to some extent first aid. We also ensure that the persons that we deal with, we are able to make referrals to other agencies to help them. So that is basically what the ministry does in our response, as you asked me for this first comment.
Wow. Already have learned so much more. I thought I knew a lot about the services at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. But every time you all come on this platform, I learned something new. So I
Okay.
hope others are paying attention, but not to worry if you missed some of the things. We do have a blog recap that you can go to, or you watch the replay on YouTube at your leisure, so you don't miss anything and you have enough information so you can share with others. All right. So what are the steps for accessing these emergency relief and benefits? This is one of the things that we do here as resource connector, not just share the information, but actually share with the community how they can access these benefits. Who qualifies and what documentations, if any, should be ready in advance? for them to easily access the support.
Well, I would encourage everyone in part of your preparedness is to ensure that you have the proper documentation or you store them properly, your ID and your TRN number. But in accessing the benefit, we have to take it in the context of, I think Richard mentioned earlier, with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, how we operate, we are 24/7. So when some agency operate within the context of the disaster season from June to November, part of what we do is also we respond to also fires, man-made disasters. So if I'm going to take it from that context, then I brought into the entire disaster aspect. So as it relates to also fires, when somebody has a fire, once we are notified, we visit the location, we assess the situation, and our first response is always food, bedding, and toiletries. Then once the persons, we ask that they get the fire report from the fire department to say, yes, they were damaged, and they can come into the parish office and make the application to get the monetary assistance. And it's according to the damage that is sustained. In the context of a disaster where more than 20 families are affected, it's not necessary a person walk into the office to access the thing. Once there's a disaster and we get the stand down from the ODPEM, the area is clear and we can move into the areas, we have actually start approaching these communities and we are going house to house. Our first response most time is to the shelters because shelters are activated a lot of times even before the disaster has commenced. So once the disaster has occurred, our first response is to get food to the shelters once persons are in the shelters. Then we're actually moving house to house in communities and we are taking information, our damage assessment form, we are collecting the data and we are providing food, we are providing toiletries to all that need. We still say to persons that are in areas that they might not be able to access, they can call through. There's a parish office in every parish that persons can access. They can call through to our contact center, which is 922-876-922. 8,000 to 9. They can call through to our contact centers and they can get information. But accessing the benefits is us taking it to them because it's not a situation where they're coming into the parish office and standing at the door and saying, we want food, we want food. Once there's a disaster, we get the stand down, we roll into response mode immediately, and we are out in the communities in our multi-sectoral approach. So what you find happening when we are coordinating, once there's a disaster, the team is out there. So the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, the ADRA, everybody's working. The parish disaster coordinator is working as a team with us. And we're actually walking house to house and assisting persons and giving them food as the needs arise.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And let's bring back NEPA into the conversation. If we're talking about risk management and relief, we would have shared earlier, Sir Bennett, some of the things that the community can do. But what role does NEPA play in post-disaster assessment?
Yes, so the agency, let me say that we are secondary responder. We're not a primary responder in terms of disaster.
Yes.
So let me say first that we have established within the organization a disaster and emergency management committee, which we're trying to reflect a similar setup like yours. So what we do is that I'm one of the co-chair, but the absolute head is the CEO, Mr. Francis. So what we do is that we ensure that all of our preparedness activities are executed within 48 hours, you know. So what that means is that we would have trained early on our disaster response and assessment teams for environmental damage. We use various templates and a mechanism and of course certain analysis to do that. Would have been trained in terms of communication. In fact, the ODPEM trained us in the use of the same JICA equipment that Mr. Thompson mentioned as well. We also would reach out to our partners. Most of the viewers would know that NEPA as an agency, we partner significantly with, in fact, we have MOU with a number of agencies and non-government organizations that actually executes environmental management on our behalf. So as part of that exercise, we would reach out prior to and afterwards to these organizations such as the CCAM, that's in Portland Cottage, and the Montague Marine Park, Blue Mountain Marine Park. There are quite a number of marine park that we have MOUs with. So these non-government organizations would actually go out and execute damage assessment. What is it that we are looking for? We are looking for those iris developments that would have permitted and licensed. As you are aware that the NEPA will process environmental application, which is environmental permits and licenses, also planning and subdivision applications. Those are applications that would have been submitted to us for review from the municipal corporations. So we are looking at those areas, those developments that are iris. We're looking at compliance activities. We are looking at areas that have been affected principally, areas so are or based on these areas would have been let me say that the team would have been dispatched to the areas that are most impacted based on reports that would have gotten. And so what they are looking for is to ensure that these areas are identified the best as possible, quantified using our technology as best as possible, as well as the other techniques that we have. And what we want to do is to ensure that there's a feedback, because in our land use planning and zoning programs that I've earlier indicated, we want to be able to see those areas in real time, in real life, how they have stood up to disasters, and of course to inform the various decision making, research, policy making processes, so that in all of these processes we are able to ensure that the appropriate decisions are made, the relevant conditions in terms of the application and approvals would be granted, and as well as any form of restorative recommendations for future. There are some areas, for example, like Treasure Beach, or it could be Port Royal, it could be Elsha Beach. There are some areas that we know that are vulnerable, and of course others that would have come on the radar. We want to identify those in sort of a GIS mapping situation, and whether or not these areas would need to be declared as noble zone areas. The agency has also identified what we call environmentally sensitive areas. These are areas that are special environmental significance um, to the whole environmental sustainability, but also to that you also want to protect these areas as well. So we also look at these areas. Um, we also want to examine those IRIS facilities, to what extent they would have complied with their conditions of their permit. Some of these facilities are required to decommission. In some aspects are, in instances, of offending, to avoid risk to the community. So we want to ensure that these would have been complied with. In fact, we also try and reach out. We send communication by emails to remind these facilities of the requirements, and of course, those that would not have complied, and to see whether or not there are any issues, enforcement matters, any regulatory matters as well. Another very important thing, working along with ODPEM, working along municipal corporation into our zoning and land use and development planning, is that we may also want to recommend areas for intervention. That is, you want to ensure that that there's some sort of policy decision and financing for these areas, whether or not there should be a managed retreat, there should be relocation. All of these are matters that are taken into consideration. So typically what happens is that in conducting this assessment, a comprehensive report is prepared, and this report is normally forwarded to PIOJ, which collaborates with the ODPEM to collate a national report for presentation to the national committee, and for quantification of damage, loss, etc. And of course, we also communicate with our boards and our partners as well in terms of the findings. And generally, what we do is just to ensure that the environmental risk factors identified, we see how they play out. We look at the feedback loops and so on. And just to say that we also partner with ODPEM when we are called upon as part of the national response mechanism, you know, um, because there might be particular situation, for example, chemical hazards, oil spills, and so on, that there's certain level of expertise and so on, and there are certain type of facilities that we do monitor that we want to partner with ODPEM and those institutions on. There are some developments that are by virtue of the operation, they store large amounts of chemicals, such as bauxite industries. They store large amount of chemical and hazardous materials. These are industries that we want to pay attention to, you know, as well as to partner with them to ensure that there is adequate preparedness. So in a nutshell, the post-disaster, our role is really to do the assessment, and do the necessary feedback, the necessary reports, the collaboration with other entities, and ensure that there is some sort of feedback, to the development planning, environmental assessment, and monitoring program, as part of the whole trying to build resilience and so on, and etc. That's it.
Thank you. All right, so we are over the 1 hour mark, but we cannot close without sharing a response on recovery. So Sir Thompson and Lady Shepherd, we want you back on screen now as we prepare to close out. So for ODPEM, what should residents expect in the first 24 to 72 hours after a disaster?
Well, first thing, normally what we do is after the system has passed, we do a quick assessment to determine if we should give the all clear. If everything is good in terms of what is happening on the ground, we give what is called an all clear to the general public and also to our response operatives for them to know that they can go out into the field. What we do within that first, especially within the first 24 hours, is to ensure that we are checking on all the shelters to ensure that persons that went into the shelter, that they are safe. We do comprehensive checks as it relates to our critical infrastructure, hospitals, and all those areas, police stations, to ensure that they are able to lend the necessary post-response activities coming out of the impact. We do rapid assessment of the country to get, and a lot of times we do that quickly. Aerial reconnaissance. The Jamaican Defense Force is an integral part of that, where we do the aerial reconnaissance to get a bird's eye view as to what the impact is, and to identify those excessively impacted communities, and ensuring that no, we can get a better understanding as to what the overall damage is. So we do that quick aerial reconnaissance, and then we also ensure that we send our team into the field to get an early assessment as to what is happening. We have what is called a NERGIS team, which is a National Emergency GIS Response Team. So they go out into the field, who working in collaboration with the local authorities, the National Works Agency, NEPA, all those entities, to ensure that we're collecting the information as to what the country looks like from an impact. We all ensure that from that data that we collect, which is critical to our response, because we know that especially when if you are talking about a Cat 4, Cat 5 impact where a system goes, take a Gilbert path that goes across the entire island, and that there is extensive damage that you will need assistance from our international community. We have to now look at from the impact that we are seeing. We have to ensure that we are coordinating through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They lead on that in terms of our international engagement to ensure that we do what is called a rapid needs assessment. And once you do that rapid needs assessment, we generate what is called a needs list. And that is shared with our local partners and also our international partners to ensure that we are receiving assistance in terms of being able to respond to our population. Way before the impact, we normally do pre-positioning of relief supplies within the local authorities and some of our satellite stores that we have across Jamaica. So from that now, we will start doing what is called our relief distribution based on the impact. And our relief distribution is on the ODPEM side is actually twinned within the overall comprehensive national relief distribution system, which the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is integral to. So you heard earlier Ms. Shepherd say that they do what is called the household damage assessment. So from that, we will have a greater understanding as to what the needs are in the community. And so the relief distribution can take place in terms of ensuring that there is comfort item for persons, blankets, tarpaulins, with food package, all these things goes out to communities based on the impact. After that as well, going into your 72 hours and beyond, when we start doing our comprehensive assessment, it goes across all sectors. So you start looking at what has happened as it relates to the health sector, what has happened as it relates to the education sector, agriculture, which normally takes the brunt of the hit, in especially when we're having a hurricane. So you know that we now start looking at your food security concerns, what we know have to do in terms of assistance to farmers, rather comes into into that process, and ensuring now that you start doing your after you're doing your response, you start now looking at your early recovery process. How quickly can we bring the commercial distribution network back up and running? So that component now is integral, where we are now saying we can start bringing back supplies into communities. We can ensure in terms of the commercial distribution network, also ensuring that our critical infrastructure are up and running. So part of the process is to ensure that working with JPS, working with National Water Commission to ensure that your hospitals are given back power, hospitals are given back water, police stations, clinics, industries, and manufacturing. So if you have bakeries that in certain areas, like especially some of our large bakeries like your National and all those bakeries, we have to ensure that those persons have power for operation, because you want to ensure now that you can quickly bring the country back to some degree of normalcy, where our people now can start getting back into the mode of normal operation in terms of work, school, and industries.
Quite a bit that takes place there. And speaking of all of that, with all these factors considered, Lady Shepherd, what are some of the things that would generally affect the timeline when it comes on to relief?
Well, one of the main things affect the timeline when it comes on to relief, as Richard hinted, first 24 hours for us, relief distribution. And it's simultaneously we are distributing to the shelters as well as we are distributing comfort items to person. Is the accessibility to hearers, because a lot of times, sometimes based on the magnitude or scope of the disaster, Mr. Thompson hinted, whether it's a 5, it's a 6 going on, there are areas that might be cut off, there are areas that you might not reach. So as most recently as in the burial experience, we had some areas in St. Andrew that were cut off. And because they were cut off and we were not able to access the area as quickly as possible. So that is one of the main things. Persons might not quickly get assistance because they do not reach out to notify persons that they are in need of assistance. So we say to persons out there, it's always important to know. It's not knowing your member of parliament as a political affiliation. It's knowing persons out there that you can get information to reach to people to get to help. Sometimes one of the things that hinders our immediate response is also volunteers. Because yes, you have the cadre of social workers, yes, you have the humanitarian stakeholders on the ground, but then based on the disaster, you need a scope or a whole lot of other persons to come in that can offer their assistance for you to move quickly. So when you have just a limited amount of person have to cover a large area, more than when you have a lot of volunteers, persons can come, you can quickly spread out and reach the persons who are in need. So basically, it's the number of manpower that you have on the ground. Sometimes it's the fleet of vehicles that you have. The vehicles that you have might cannot reach a particular location because of the terrain and it's getting the food to them. So basically, accessibility, the fleet of your vehicle, the manpower, the ability to coordinate well and to get out there as quickly as possible. I see as some of the challenges that we have in mobilizing and getting relief supplies to people as quickly as possible.
All right, and we are not leaving here before we share how the community can get involved. But before we get there, let's hear from JPS. What are the key steps in the power restoration process? And what should customers do about downlines or outages, especially in rural areas?
So it can be frustrating, we understand, to our customers, and it can also be damaging and crippling sometimes to aspects of our economy when there's an outage or extensive outages across the island, depending on the severity of hurricane or tropical storm. And with this we do operate always with this in mind, but there's also what takes priority, which is the safety of our employees, the safety of customers, the safety of human life. And to ensure that we consider safety, we respond as quickly and as efficiently as possible. We actually begin positioning ourselves to be able to respond before the impact of the impending system. So once a hurricane warning is issued, we activate what was previously our Central Emergency Operations Center, which is now an even more robust incident command system that we've adopted for hurricane response. And this system is influenced by international best practices and the USA's National Incident Management System. So we do activate that once we have a hurricane warning. Now, after the hurricane, we wait on the all clear from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management in collaboration with the Met Service. And once it's been indicated that it's safe to dispatch or restoration crews, then as first priority, we do damage assessment. So we assess the extent of damage to our power plants, our substations, and the power delivery network in general. And this is to ensure that we not only identify the areas that need to be fixed, but we identify hazards and we can have a plan of action that allows for our employees and contractors and support to be able to operate safely. The next thing, the second step, is to repair power plants and main transmission lines. So this will ensure that we can get supply from the plants, substations, to actual communities and other areas. The third step is the restoration of essential services and critical facilities. So once we've done repairs and it's safe to start turning the lights back on, electricity will first be restored to the transmission and distribution lines that provide electricity to essential services such as hospitals, airports, communication systems, and water supply facilities. The fourth step is restoring supply to main lines that serve a large population centers or number of customers. So while we maintain focus on the central services and critical infrastructure, we try to restore areas that have a large number of customers. And then we're able to restore, repair and restore smaller lines. And this would be customers in more isolated areas. And the final step would be the individual cases. So you have persons that their neighbors or persons in other areas of the communities may have gotten supply back, but there may be an issue that's specific to their location, their premises. And we then get to address those situations. And throughout the restoration process, we do have a welfare and outreach approach as well, which is typically spearheaded by the JPS Foundation. And this is in collaboration with other foundations and government and non-governmental agencies. And it's to assist our customers outside of the electricity restoration. So to support those communities, especially that have been the most heavily impacted, by providing care packages, mobile charging stations, and other support that we'll be able to provide in addition to the restoration that we're doing.
Fantastic. All right. And it's time for our wrap up. So we want to hear from you. All right, let's continue with you, Sir Harris, and then Lady Shepherd. What partnerships or actions would you like to see more of to strengthen disaster response?
Well, I think we've made great strides this year in the inter-utility and inter-agency drills and simulations that we've had. So we have been updating the critical customer or critical facilities lists that we have and sharing them among utilities and agencies so that we can ensure that these critical facilities are up and running as quickly as possible. We've also been strengthening communication pathways, and these drills allowed for us to test that out in terms of joint press briefings, simulating information sharing among the agencies, because practically speaking, we do depend on each other heavily to restore. So based on those simulations and drills that we've had and the range of entities, JCF, JDF, ODPEM, NWC, NWA, the municipal corporations, the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecoms, Transport, OUR, we're all a part of those drills and simulations. And as we continue into the hurricane season, building on those partnerships, that's something that we are focusing on at JPS. And we know other entities are also focusing on the same. So I think those are important partnerships that we've already been strengthening.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have any to add, Sir Bennett? Lady Shepherd? Sir Thompson, let's have you back on.
Well, for us at the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, they say never waste a good experience or a good crisis. What Beryl has taught us that the importance of getting your coordination right. One of the things that we had to consider also for where disasters are, because where the ministry is concerned, we provide food in shelters post-disasters. So we do have to understand that there are times when we might have to pre-position supplies pre-disaster so that persons can quickly access, because you're in a shelter and you're moving tonight, and then by tomorrow morning or the next day, based on the disaster, you have to move quickly. There's not supplies immediately there for you to eat. Even though the Disaster Risk Management Act does indicate that you have to work with supplies that last up to 72 hours, persons are not doing so. So we realize that we have to look at our shelters, categorize them, and to see where we can pre-position supplies, not just in shelters, critical locations that persons can access quickly instead of traveling into Kingston or just moving about and having the supplies just ready to go. So those are some of the things that we really should consider that can make our operation, our response more effective, and that we can reach people and reach them in time.
Okay, Sir Bennett and then Sir Thompson. You're muted, Sir Bennett.
You hear me?
Go ahead now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'd just like to reemphasize the importance of being informed, to be aware and to be alert in terms of the bulletins and the news from the ODPEM and all the various agencies respond. Um, be informed of the good practices, build wisely. Not don't build in gully banks, riverine areas, coastal and lowline areas, steep hillsides, those areas that are prone to landslides and severe flooding as best as possible. Um, Utilize the service of trained professionals and skilled person in building, and of course, so that when you're building according with the standards and guidelines and so on. Also, to try and ensure that you are adequately resourced as best as possible, in this facility. Be aware of the environmental risk factors that I mentioned before, hazardous areas that are likely to, we are spillage and so on. Be aware of your surroundings. You can join a community group. There are some things that can be done. I know that funding and resources might be an issue, but there are some simple things. Clear drains, that is important. Infrastructure that is damaged, that is near you, and just be aware of the contacts and the lines and the person that you are able to, in case of disaster and flooding, and other things. So that's the message. And avoid land use practices such as the plastic bags and improper garbage and waste disposal. Just being generally be aware of the good environmental practices that will reduce the impact in the case of hurricane and other hazards.
Thank you, Sir Thompson.
Could you remind me quickly of the question, please, so I can
All
probably.
right. What partnerships or actions would you like to see more of to strengthen disaster response?
Well, I don't think it's more off. I think it's based on our system work. Our system is one of the most comprehensive risk management system globally, which moves from national level, parish level, all the way down to the community level. So it's really to ensure that we continue to maintain the national risk management apparatus. We continue to ensure that we are training and developing our risk management personnel, that we continue to move with the times. We do realize that there is globally there is changing in climate. Climate is always has always been changing from the advent of time. So it's nothing new, even though we're looking at climate change and the climate crisis now more extensively. It's nothing new. Climate is always changing, and there are issues that arise and with climate change, more intense systems. When there is a wet spell, it's extensive. When there's a dry spell, it's extensive. We see where we are now being impacted by Saharan dust that never used to impact us, that raises temperature a little bit more. That now there is more of a strain on our fuel and energy system. So we have to ensure that those areas are strengthened a little bit more. So it's to pay critical attention to the change in time and to ensure that we're putting in the necessary mechanism, or we're building on the current mechanism to ensure that we can effectively respond to our people, ensuring that we are having new and more robust planning frameworks, developing new policies around disaster risk management. We currently know we have a comprehensive disaster risk management plan and strategy, which is at the green paper level, looking at how we ensure that our legislative framework and our regulatory framework are modern enough to support what we do. I think we were lucky as a country. I know we're in the hurricane season and we're placing emphasis on hurricanes, but we were lucky as a country that we have currently a very modern and robust legislation that we could have used to manage our COVID crisis. So it's to ensure that we are building out more comprehensive regulatory framework and policies that guide risk management, and to ensure that we are strengthening collectively our agencies, ensuring that the right players are in place in terms of in terms of the management structures of organizations, ensuring that our technical personnel are equipped and that they are properly trained and that they have the experience to really respond to our people. Because a lot of the times, whenever time there is crisis, you don't want to be learning in a crisis. If you're learning in a crisis, you are going to persons will die. You have to ensure that you already know what to do. I normally say to my team at the ODPEM that you must ensure that what we do becomes nature. Person says second nature. I always say to them, if it's second nature, you have to think about it to apply it. If it is nature, you just apply it. There is a training. There's a saying in the military science, especially for fighter pilots. If you're in a dog fight and you're thinking you're going to die, you just have to react. If you think, you die. And so that's what our risk management specialists, we have to get to that point where what we do becomes second nature. Like for myself, Ms. Shepherd, Gregory, JPS personnel, we constantly have to be doing simulations. We constantly have to be doing training and ensuring that we are upgrading and updating our thinking so that we can effectively respond to our people. So and ensure that there is partnerships and synergies. That you did not just know a name, but you know a face. So you know what the notification procedures are. So if there is something where there is a major oil spill, you know who to reach out to at NEPA to trigger that notification process. You need any kind of welfare response. You know who to reach out to at MLSS to trigger that response. If there is something as it relates to a power line down or power being lost in some critical areas in terms of our critical facilities and our industrial areas, you know who to reach out to at JPS, because we train together, we do simulation activities together, and there is that synergy and partnerships, and we continue to build and maintain partnerships. In disaster risk management, partnerships and synergy is critical, because we can't, if we're the coordinators at the ODPEM, we can't do it alone. There's a comprehensive system, and so you need to ensure that you're building that synergy and you're expanding on the partnerships to ensure that collectively we can respond to our people.
Fantastic. And finally, we need to share with the viewers how citizens can stay connected to updates from your organization before, during, and after disaster. So Thompson, Lady Shepherd, Sir Bennett, and then we're going to close out with Sir Harris.
Well, for us, our information is constant in terms of programs that we do. We're on ensuring that our communication system is up and ready. We are now in the National Hurricane Preparedness Month of activities. So we can go on our website, www.odpem.org.jm, and get those information. One of the things that is critical as well is shelter management that I spoke to before. And we have a system now where you can go onto our website and see when the shelters closest to you are open. So we have that on our system. If they are open, they are in green. If they are not open, you see these little red dots. So those kind of communication in terms of what we get to our general public is there. Persons can come into our office at 2 to 4 Union Road, come into our library, get brochures as it relates to hurricanes, what they need to do during hurricanes, and stay connected with our social media pages, our Twitter page, our Instagram page, Facebook. So we try to ensure that we get the information out there constantly. When we're in the hurricane season, we do a lot of activities like these, community-based activities. We're on national radios. We provide the information. We collaborate when we are going on a lot of these media platforms, the ODPEM, Met Service, MLSS, Ministry of Health. We collaborate to ensure that we are getting the information out there. And we always say to persons, stay tuned and get the information and get credible information, because we do know that social media is powerful. It helps to get early information, but you can also get disinformation. And so you have to ensure that you're getting your information from the correct source, and that you're utilizing that information and that you're acting on it. You don't get it and you don't do anything with it. Because having the information, having the knowledge and not acting on it is foolhardy. It won't help you to achieve anything, and it won't help you to protect your people, and be a part coming just a little slant out of the outside of the communication process, the neighborly. Make sure that you live good with your neighbors, because the first person that will come to your aid in a crisis is your neighbor. The first person that will come to your aid in a crisis is your neighbor. So ensure that you're living good with your neighbor, and you have a system within your communities that you're protecting each other. And couple with that, first and foremost, ensure that you're developing your family disaster plan, because that's also a communication strategy within the family, where persons know what they need to do in a crisis. And then you extend that to your neighbor, and you extend that to your wider community.
Amazing. Go ahead, Lady Shepherd.
Well, Mr. Thompson, it's some of the
Statement.
high points that we have been considering. So for one, we think a good communication strategy is important. So I think for the past year, what the ministry have been doing, we have been doing a lot of information fairs out there, and we are doing about over 26 every year. One of the thrusts that the ministry went into was the creation of satellite offices in all parishes. So there are a lot of persons who are living in deep rural areas who cannot access information by coming into a parish office. So we bring the services of the ministry to them. So you can rely, particularly, I know for the parish of St. Catherine, that every Tuesday or so we'll be at Louida's Vale, and we are constantly there. People can come, people can access information. We created a contact center where persons can call in. I think I gave the number before, 922-8009, and we continue to liaise with the ODPEM in order to get the information out there, be a part of the stimulation exercise, ensure that our numbers, our information are, we have some disaster brochures that just before the hurricane season, we have also disseminated these to the parish offices already. So as much as possible, we are getting the information out there, because for me, information is power. What you don't know can harm you. So the more you know and the more you don't take for granted, and to break this whole culture of people believing that it will not happen. Because a lot of persons are the opinion. When we did a survey once, persons are saying, every year they're saying, buy up food, do all of these things, and nothing happened. I don't think the weather gentleman there is Ian, Mr. Thomas is the best friend of everybody, because he's deceiving to tell us, yes, things are going to happen, and it never happened. And if we don't see this bird fly across the sea in this community, no disaster will come. What we're saying to people, stay informed. Information is power. Listen to what is being said out there. Follow our website, www.mlss.gov.jm, all of our social media pages. Information is there, and information is power.
Thank you, Sir Bennett.
Yes, similar to the others, you can go on our NEPA's website, www.nepa.gov.jm. We have been, and of course, the social media. We have an extensive social media, similar as well. And to our drive, we have an extensive environmental in schools and environmental program conducted by our public branch, going through the various communities and schools and NGOs and so on. Right throughout the year, there's a big program there, funded program. We also partner with our those stakeholders that we have MOU with, to ensure that the news is out there in terms of proper environmental management, development planning. As I mentioned before, we had Environmental Awareness Week, and there are many signatures days that we commemorate. World Town Planning Day, World Ozone Day. All of these are geared towards just informing the public of good environmental management and practices, and just to be informed, and of course we continue to update and to publish in the various media, news articles, updates, and so on, locally and abroad as well. So we believe that it is very important, and of course there are various lines that you can call in as well. There's NEPA's line 754-7540. And of course, there are email contacts there as well that is on website that you can get information.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Sir Harrison will close out with contact details as well as some important tips that we're
Yes,
leaving.
thank you. And echoing what my fellow panelists have been saying, the trusted and official channels are the channels to pay attention to for the most accurate information. Paying attention to information that's not accurate can lead to its own challenges during this time. So as I mentioned, there's a JPS WhatsApp broadcast channel that persons can keep abreast of generally with updates, but it also becomes very important during hurricane and the restoration period. If you have not already downloaded the MyJPS mobile app, please do so from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. It's important for not just doing the majority of things that you could do in an office, but for getting updates and making reports after a hurricane. Connect with us on social media as well. That's Facebook, Instagram, X at MyJPSOnline. And you can call us at 888-225-5577, and that's toll free from a flow line, or 888-935-5577, which is at a reduced cost with Digicel. In addition to that, you can listen to our media releases and interviews on the TV or radio that we will be doing to keep our customers updated during the restoration period. And we do town criers. We'll continue doing that for areas that may not necessarily have supply or access to other forms of communication at the time, and along with stakeholder and company meetings. So do also look out for information on those being held. I also want to say that during a hurricane, it might not be possible for us to respond to individual calls and reports. This is while the system is actively going. We will, however, keep our customers updated with critical information on some of the channels I mentioned a while ago. And so we ask customers to update the contact information on their JPS accounts just to ensure they can get timely updates. And I wanted to leave 4 important reminders and tips. When a hurricane threatens, charge up your phones and other devices. Make sure that you have backup lighting, preferably not open flames, so flashlights and lamps. Have battery-powered radio and extra batteries. And if you have a generator, get it serviced. Have adequate fuel on hand, and your generator should be operated outside and not inside to prevent buildup of harmful gases in your home.
All right. Thank you so much for.
And just to quickly add to that, I think what is essential as well is for persons, especially persons that have these lifestyle illnesses, to ensure that you have your medication, and that and persons with babies to ensure that you're stocking up on the necessary supplies for the babies. Because if you have to go into shelters, you want to ensure that if we are impacted, we're out for 4 or 5 days, then you have to ensure that you have a good supply of your medication to keep you going.
All right, we are back. I'm not sure what happened just there. All right, so let me thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for your insights shared here, or viewers that were able to join us live, those watching the replay. Thank you, Mishka Myri, for keeping the comments going. Thank you so much for your contribution. And of course, in the blog, you'll get the additional resources, the websites, and all those lovely stuff. So let's continue to work together to build safer, stronger, and more resilient communities across Jamaica. I look forward to hosting these entities again, maybe in another forum. We have several. We might have to do some of them in Community Corner, so we can get more, get deeper into some of the things that you do, so we can keep the conversation going. So let me thank you all again for sharing space with us here on the Sorrento Resource Connector. Thanks to our forum partner, the JCF Area 3 team, for seeing this forum fit for this space, and we want to continue to facilitate these discussions going forward, because some people might be wondering, why is there no police in the in the forum, and it's a JCF? But this is just to highlight the different entities that the JCF coordinates with, and if we're able to get it right based on the information shared from these entities, it makes the work of our law enforcement officers easier when it gets around to the disaster period. So let me thank you all again for tuning in, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the night. Stay connected with us, and remember to share the link, as Mishka shared earlier, that we ought to share the information. As I always say, don't keep it to yourself. So again, have yourselves a fantastic rest of the night. And we do this again next Tuesday with the Early Childhood Commission at 8 p.m. as we continue to share on Child Rights Series for 2025. And then we have Community Corner next Thursday at 8 p.m. Thanks again, and have yourself a good night. The SRC Community Safety and Security Monthly Live Forum is brought to you on second Thursdays at 8 p.m. Brought to you in partnership with the JCF Area 3 Police. Visit our website at www.serenityresourceconnector.com and subscribe to receive our weekly blog post. Join us again on Tuesday at 8 p.m. for a Child Rights Series with the Early Childhood Commission. Thank you for watching.